We've all been there, right? Staring at that carton of milk, a yogurt, or a bag of salad, seeing that dreaded date. It's past the date, and with a sigh, into the bin it goes. We've been taught that once that date hits, it's game over, unsafe, dangerous. But what if I told you that's almost entirely wrong? For most of the food in your fridge and pantry, those dates aren't about safety at all. They're about quality. That's right, the vast majority of dates you see, sell by, best if used by, are simply the manufacturer's best guess for when a product is at its peak freshness or for how long a store should display it. The only major exception? Infant formula. For everything else, it's a suggestion, not a hard deadline for your health. This misunderstanding leads to a massive problem. In the United States alone, an estimated 40% of all food is wasted. Think about that. Nearly half of the food produced ends up in landfills, and a huge chunk of that is perfectly edible food, tossed because of confusing date labels. It's a tragedy for our wallets and the planet, contributing significantly to environmental issues through methane emissions from landfills and wasted resources in production. So if these dates aren't about safety and they cause so much waste, where did they even come from? The story is wild, and it might just involve one of America's most notorious gangsters, Al Capone. Legend has it, back in the 1930s, during the Prohibition era, Al Capone wasn't just dealing in illegal booze. He and his brother, Ralph Bottles Capone, had a significant stake in Chicago's dairy industry. At the time, milk quality was highly inconsistent. It was common for milk to be reprocessed, diluted, or sold well past its prime, leading to widespread illness, especially among children. The story goes that a family member of Capone's, perhaps his niece or sister, fell seriously ill from spoiled milk. Enraged, Capone allegedly used his considerable influence and control over the city's businesses to push for mandatory date labeling on milk bottles. While the exact details are murky and debated by historians, it's a fantastic legend that has been passed down through generations. What's clear is that the Capone brothers did play a role in advocating for milk dating. They saw it as a way to control the market and ensure a higher quality product, pushing out competitors who couldn't manage fresh, timely deliveries. It was less about altruistic public health and more about market dominance and consolidating their power in the dairy industry. This early push for transparency, however self-serving, laid some groundwork for future date labeling. Before the mid-20th century, people largely relied on their senses to tell a food was good. If it smelled bad, looked off, or tasted sour, you didn't eat it. Simple. Our ancestors had an intuitive understanding of food spoilage, honed over millennia. But as populations shifted from rural areas to sprawling cities, and local farms and markets were gradually replaced by large supermarkets and complex supply chains, that direct connection to food production was lost. Consumers, now far removed from the source of their food, began to demand assurances about freshness and safety. This demand for consumer confidence led to the modern date labeling we know today. It really started gaining traction in the 1950s in the UK, with companies like Marks & Spencer internally dating products to manage their stock rotation and ensure quality on their shelves. By the 1970s, consumer advocacy groups in the US pushed for open dating, dates readable by everyone, to replace the confusing closed codes that only manufacturers and retailers could understand. These closed codes were often a series of letters and numbers that indicated the production batch or packaging date, but offered no clear guidance to the consumer. The shift to open dating was a significant step towards empowering consumers with more information. But here's the kicker. Even today, there's no single consistent federal law in the US governing these dates, except for infant formula. This means it's a confusing patchwork of state regulations and voluntary industry practices, leading to much of the confusion we experience. Let's break down what those labels actually mean, because understanding these distinctions is key to reducing food waste and making informed decisions. First, the sell-by date. This is primarily for the store. It tells them how long to display the product for inventory management and to ensure optimal turnover. It's a guide for retailers, not a safety indicator for consumers. You can almost always eat food past its sell-by date, provided it has been stored correctly. Next, the best by or best if used by date. It indicates when the product will be at its absolute peak quality, flavor, or texture. Think of it as a suggestion for optimal enjoyment, like a wine's peak drinking window. It's not a safety warning. A product might still be perfectly good to eat weeks or even months after its best by date, though its sensory qualities might have slightly diminished. Then there's the use by date. This is often found on highly perishable items like deli meats or some dairy products. It's the last date recommended for the use of the product while at peak quality. While it's still primarily about quality, for very perishable items, the decline in quality can be more rapid after this date, and it's generally a good idea to consume or freeze these items by the use-by date for best results. Finally, the term expiration date is actually quite rare on food products. When you do see it, it's mostly reserved for things like infant formula and some medications where precise potency, nutrient levels, or efficacy are critical and can genuinely impact health if consumed past that date. For the vast majority of foods, what we commonly call an expiration date is actually one of the other labels. So, if the dates aren't the ultimate guide, what is? It comes down to understanding the fundamental difference between two types of bacteria that affect our food. On one hand, we have spoilage bacteria. These are the ones that make food look, smell, and taste bad. They cause mold, slime, discoloration, and sour smells. While certainly unappetizing, these bacteria are generally harmless to consume in small amounts. Your senses are incredibly effective at detecting the presence of spoilage bacteria. If your milk smells sour or your bread has green fuzz, your body instinctively tells you not to eat it, and for good reason. It won't taste good. On the other hand, we have pathogenic bacteria. These are the silent killers like Salmonella, E. coli, Listeria, or Campylobacter. The insidious thing about pathogenic bacteria is that they often don't change the look, smell, or taste of your food. You can't see them, you can't smell them, and you can't taste them, but they can make you seriously sick, leading to food poisoning, which can range from uncomfortable to life-threatening. And here's the crucial part. Expiration dates do not protect you from pathogens. A product can be well within its best buy date and still harbor dangerous pathogens if it hasn't been handled or stored properly. The most important factor for food safety isn't the date on the box, it's temperature control and proper storage. Keeping cold foods cold, hot foods hot, and practicing good hygiene in the kitchen are far more critical in preventing foodborne illnesses than rigidly adhering to a printed date. For instance, leaving raw chicken out on the counter for hours, regardless of its sell-by date, creates a perfect breeding ground for pathogens. So how do you know if food is still good? Since those dates are often misleading, the best approach is to trust your senses. Your eyes, nose, and even your ears, for things like fizzing in a sealed container, are your primary tools for assessing food quality and safety. For dairy products like milk and yogurt, the sniff test is incredibly reliable. If milk smells sour, rancid, or just plain off, it's probably time to toss it. Yogurt might develop a more pungent sour smell or separate excessively. For meats, a strong, unpleasant odor is a clear indicator of spoilage. The sight test is equally important. Look for mold, discoloration, or unusual textures. If bread has green or black spots, or if vegetables are slimy and discolored, they've gone bad. While you can sometimes cut mold off hard cheese or firm fruits, for most foods, visible mold means it's time to discard. And for eggs, there's a classic and fun test, the egg float test. Gently place an egg in a bowl of water. If it sinks and lies flat on its side, it's very fresh. If it sinks but stands on end, it's older but still likely fine to eat. However, if it floats to the surface, it's probably gone bad. This happens because as an egg ages, moisture evaporates through its porous shell, and the air pocket inside grows, making it more buoyant. Understanding what expiration dates really mean empowers you to make smarter choices. You can save money by not throwing away perfectly good food, significantly reduce your food waste, and help the environment by lessening the burden on landfills and conserving the resources used to produce food that never gets eaten. All by simply knowing the truth and trusting your own judgment, guided by your senses and a little bit of science. So next time you see that date, don't panic. Take a moment, use your senses, and make an informed decision. You might just be saving a perfectly good meal from the landfill. What are your thoughts on expiration dates? Do you have any personal tips or tricks for knowing when food is still good? Share your insights in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more fascinating insights into the world around us.